Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hello, and yes, you got a slightly different view of the inside of my gym today on another pre-record for the Recruiting Gym, except this time, have you realised, you got two for the price of one, and really, I do love this quote, by the way. Wow, I really regret that workout, said no one. Ever. You have to commit to doing your workouts, and it might find a little bit tough to get there in the first place, but ultimately, once you've done it, you feel good about yourself. But anyway, you are more than welcome. You have my commitment for the next few moments of your time. But also, there is a saying that I just want to bring up on screen that Abraham Lincoln is attributed to, and it is, commitment is what transforms a promise into a reality. Now, all the coaches that you have in the Recruiting Gym at your disposal are committed to delivering training sessions for you online. You know, it's online training powered by humans. However, that on its own is not enough. It takes your commitment. It takes your commitment to apply the actions, to apply the learnings. And then and only then can you turn that theory into a reality. Now, a couple of weeks ago, if you watched it, I covered client motivations during BD. I covered why a client would be motivated to hire, as well as why a client would be motivated to use the services of a recruiter. Now, last week, I also talked about communication during the business development process and, of course, during the whole recruitment process. So it's quite logical to think that if a client is motivated and they're willing to talk to you and have a decent, open and honest two-way dialogue, then surely the next step is commitment, right? But we all know that recruitment has many twists and turns. And what's that down to? Well, it's down to the fact that we're human beings. We change our minds. Clients change their mind, candidates change their minds. And look, there could be justifiable reasons for that, various internal or external factors. But let's go right back to the start of your BD approach. What if your first approach was an email or a social media approach? Really, the next level of commitment you want from the client is to actually have a telephone call with you, or maybe even a video call, a two-way dialogue where both parties can gain so much more. Now, some people on their first BD approach might well put the ball firmly back in the client's court. Actually hit the camera. So I'm just going to disappear from the screen and give you a couple of examples of messages, and you can be the judge as to whether or not you think they're good approaches. So first one, when would be a good time for us to talk? Do you know what? It's not too bad. You may get some results. Let me know if I can be of assistance. My contact details are below. Look, the ball is firmly back in the client's court, and it's highly unlikely that you're going to see that ball coming back over the net anytime soon. I'm sure you will have some questions, so I will call you on Friday at 10:30 to provide you with some additional detail. If this time is no good, please suggest an alternative time and date. Okay, back to me. So, who has control now? And look, they're not perfect examples. They are just purely that, examples. Now, look, at least you're going to be committed, and you've committed to actually sending out that approach. They may take your call. You never know. They may also contact you to arrange another time. They may also contact you to say, actually, don't bother. Now, look, with the last one, if they are actually contacting you to say don't bother, at least you have an opportunity to explore why it is that they're saying don't bother. But if it's a definite, no, I don't want to talk to you, no, I don't want to work with you, fine, that's okay. Because what you don't want to do is spend your life on BD chasing dead ends. They've actually committed to saying to you, no. Now look, of course, they might just completely ignore your call. They might completely ignore your approach. The important thing here is to not give them the control. Give them the opportunity to say whether or not they want to commit to a course of action. Now, clients will commit. They will commit if, for example, you sparked an interest. If you've mentioned something during your conversations or during your approaches that will alleviate some of their pain points or get rid of any of the challenges that they're facing right now or have faced in the past. Maybe they'll commit to you if you've demonstrated knowledge and the fact that you've researched them and you come across as very credible. And also the questions that you're asking and the information you're providing is really setting you apart from the competition. Commitment, let's face it, is about getting the client to give you some small acknowledgements, some positive signs along the way that there is going to be signs of movement. And you need to get a lot of nods throughout the process in order to get to that final conclusion, whether that be a placement, a meeting, but you need lots of nods. And I, like perhaps many other trainers, have used the elephant analogy. And the elephant analogy is, how would you eat an elephant? Well, the simple answer to that is you wouldn't eat an elephant, well, particularly not all in one go anyway. Why? Because it's too big. But what does that mean in this context? Well, in this context, the elephant represents the decision that the client has to make. And that's a big decision. So what we need to do is to break that decision-making process down. Can you imagine if you just called up a client out of the blue, never spoken to them before, and said, "Hi, my name's Alan Clark from Recruiting Jim. Give me all of your contract and permanent placements on an exclusive basis at 25%. Now that's like a massive elephant coming towards them. It's a big decision. They weren't expecting it. You know, there you were, the recruiter hiding in the bushes, and then all of a sudden you jump out and ask for that. They're just going to freeze, or they're going to run from the hills. Now let's put the elephant to one side for now, because I want to give you an example of how getting small pieces of commitment can help with the final decision. And the example I've been using for quite a number of years actually is an estate agent example. And basically I met up with one estate agent with my wife, and the guy came over and he gave us the keys to the house. And this is a number of years ago. And he said, "Off you go and have a look inside." And then he promptly sat on the bonnet of his car and lit up a cigarette. And I said, "Are you coming in?" And he said, no, it's all right. He says they're both working in London. So I thought, well, this is a bit weird anyway. So my wife and I walked in and had a little look around, came outside, locked up. It's not even our house. And this estate agent came over to us, walked up to me, and he said, he had his last puff on his cigarette. He said, "So, Mr. Clark," he says, "do you want to buy the house?" And it was like, boom, this elephant. And I just said, no. So, now, this is the biggest purchase you'll ever make. So a few weeks later, we signed up with another estate agent. But this time, we turned up at this house with the whole Clarkey clan. I had all 3 kids and my wife with us. So we were en masse. And Paul, the estate agent, turned up and they said, "Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Clark, thanks ever so much for meeting me. Oh, and you brought the children with you. Oh, what's your name? What's your name?" So what he's doing straight away is he knows he's got 5 decision makers in front of him right now. He's engaging with people. Now, before we even set foot inside the house, he said, "Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Clark, this is a private close." He said, "There's only 6 houses here. You have parking for 5 cars. So it's not used as a cut through. So if the children want to play outside, it's very safe." So of course, what are all we doing? All 5 of us, we're going, "Oh yes." It's like the Churchill dog. "Oh yes." So, and then he said, "Oh, and there's trees across the front, down the side, and across the back of the garden. So you're not overlooked from any angle. And of course, it's an additional security benefit." So there we are again going, "Oh yes." And then he said, "Oh, and by the way, when you go into the house, the couple have gone through a divorce, so there's not a lot of furniture. So when you go in, you'll be able to sort of visualize your own." So we're going, "Oh, yes." So basically, he was just asking us questions as we went round the house. 15 minutes later or so, we came out the house and he turned around and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, is this the sort of property that you would consider putting an offer in on?" And straight away, like that, my eldest daughter said, "Yes, and can I have the loft room?" So basically, well, she bagsied the biggest room. But bottom line, he'd made the decision-making process a whole lot easier. How? Because we had a whole load of yeses to fall back on. And that's what I want you to do with your client calls, with your client contacts. Get as many yeses as you possibly can. Get as many nods as you can. And we do this by testing the water. We do this by using probably the most popular close you will ever use in recruitment. And it's something called the pre-close. So I'm going to disappear from screen and you can tell me whether or not these are familiar to you. If I could provide you with a level of service that surpasses what you've been experiencing today, would you be open to having a further conversation? If you could work with a specialist recruiter with a proven track record of supplying to fintech companies like yourself, would that be of interest? If I send that information within the next hour, would you be open to a call at 4 o'clock this afternoon? If I send our terms over now, would you be able to get them signed and back to me by close of business tomorrow? Yeah, come on, back to me. Yes, it's the good old, If I do this for you, will you do this for me? The pre-close is often identified by the fact that it has the word if in it, but it doesn't have to. Let me give you a couple of other examples. So in what situations would you consider another supplier? What would you need to see from me in order to have an opportunity to work with you? Would you consider working with a consultancy that could guarantee to deliver 3 quality profiles within 48 hours? Now, with these types of questions, you're giving them a situation. It's not real just yet, but you're giving them a hypothetical. Now, with hypotheticals, one of the beauties of this is that you're testing for future commitment. But what it also does is it takes the pressure off. And at least what you're doing is you're testing their level of commitment, and you can decide just how much effort and energy you want to put into this. So look, bottom line, there's several things that you could get a client to commit to. For example, a further call, receiving an email, looking at a CV, reviewing your terms, having a video call, meeting face to face. Oh yes, please. Sending you their terms, sending you a job to work by way of a test, referring you to someone else within the organization, working with you when they do hire next, because obviously when you make this approach, they might not be hiring right now. I suspect there's plenty more, but I think you get the gist. So remember, clients are far more likely to commit to you if you've impressed them, they trust you, you come across as personable as well as knowledgeable, you empathized and took the time to understand their situation, you asked them intelligent and relevant questions, you didn't pressure them into making decisions, and you got them to commit in small chunks. You got those small nods. Now look, I know there's some of you watching that are thinking, but Alan, my marketplace isn't like that. It's very reactionary. They just want bums on seats. They're quite direct. It's really fast moving. And okay, that's fine. If you can make some pennies along the way and make some placements all the time, every time you make a placement with them, you're building a bit of a reputation, you're building a relationship. So you might need to play the long game with some of those clients. So look, I'm going to shut up right now because I've been told that my videos are too long. So look, for your workouts, first one, go back and have a look at any lapsed clients or any previous BD attempts where there was no definite result and no definite sign of commitment. And look for contacts where the trail has gone cold, but this time approach them with a different mindset, maybe gaining a small piece of commitment or a course of action that will get you closer to a much bigger and larger level of commitment. Also have a look at any future BD activities, any BD activities you've got planned, particularly for 2021. Consider how you can test the water. Consider what closes you can use to get some form of commitment from them. And please do make good notes on your CRM, as this will serve you well when you do your follow-ups. And finally, yes, look, remember, these videos are just sound bites. You can gain so much more from the content that is there for you in the Recruiting Gym. So I will probably see you on the next one, or I'll see you in the gym. But yeah, go out there and get some nods. Oh, yes.